So a curious question that revolves around the Sounds of Nightmares is Otto's sister named Sisi, who supposedly wore a yellow raincoat and had mysteriously disappeared years prior. Based on Chapter 6, it gave us the idea that either Six or the girl in the yellow raincoat might be Sisi. But is that true though? Well, we're going to find out. Hello everyone, this is Little Nightheories here, ready to play with our childhood fears. In today's video, we're going to be theorizing who Sisi might be from The Sounds of Nightmares. Before we begin, there will be spoilers ahead involving The Sounds of Nightmares and possibly other Little Nightmares media, so beware of spoilers. So, if you have listened to The Sounds of Nightmares, you'll know that Otto revealed to us that he used to have an older sister named Sisi when he was a young boy. She also must have worn a yellow raincoat given how he reacted surprisingly when Noon said the two words yellow raincoat in Chapter 6. Possibly the exact same one Six wears that was passed down from the girl in the yellow raincoat from Very Little Nightmares. And I think this sparked up the whole theory that Six, or the girl in the yellow raincoat, might be Sisi. However, some people forget that Six never wore the yellow raincoat in the first place, and we'll get down to that later. So, I spotted three theories that revolve around this whole debate. The first one being that Sisi is actually Six, the second being that the raincoat girl is Sisi, and the third, coming from me, being that Sisi is her own separate character. And I'll have to add in an additional theory being that Six is actually Noon, which we'll also get to soon. A few months ago, I made a poll on YouTube asking all of you if either Six or the raincoat girl is Sisi. And unsurprisingly to me, 85% of you believe that the girl in the yellow raincoat is Sisi, while 15% chose Six. Yeah, I guess that 85% understood the lore consistently than others. And it's alright if some of you have your own theories and opinions and whatnot. I'm going to say mine right now. I believe that Sisi is her own separate character, and if not, then I strongly believe that she is the girl in the yellow raincoat. Which could make sense for those who know the complete lore, and speaking of, it's speculated to be as follows: Very Little Nightmares, Little Nightmares 2, and Little Nightmares 1. Albeit my argument could still work even if the order was different. But as far as we were able to see, Six's journey starts off in the nest, where she meets the girl in the yellow raincoat, who many believe could be Sisi. And it's quite confusing because I also have no clue who Sisi is. Sure, you could say that the girl in the yellow raincoat is Sisi, but there's one little detail that could possibly debunk that claim. You see, in Chapter 6 of The Sounds of Nightmares, Noon recalls her last dream and finds herself to be in some sort of clothing factory? I'm not entirely sure. She did point out some piece of clothing in the audio, but so it could be. Anyways, Noon finds a wooden chest and opens it with a yellow raincoat inside. Now, keep in mind that Noon is not actually dreaming when she's wandering in her quote-unquote dreams. She is actually visiting the nowhere, as confirmed by Otto in Chapter 4, where he witnessed her disappearing during her sleep and theorized that she's entering an alternate dimension. Why this is important is because the yellow raincoat is also there in the nowhere, and it's not worn by anyone else. Noon just finds it in there in the wooden chest, stored away. This raised some suspicion in me because Sisi, as stated again, supposedly wore the yellow raincoat, and she must have some sort of reason to take the ferryman's hand and leave Otto behind, since he stated that she must have abandoned him when he was a young boy. But we'll get to that soon. Now, it is poignant to believe that time in the nowhere has no real meaning, so the timeline of The Sounds of Nightmares is very unknown. So this is gonna come out of pure speculation from me. So once again, Six never wore the yellow raincoat as seen in Very Little Nightmares, since it was technically her first appearance story-wise. So in my opinion, she is not Sisi. And even if she was, she could have easily recognized her yellow raincoat. Look at the beginning of Very Little Nightmares. The raincoat girl first encounters Six in this storage area, and she looks at her and runs away. If Six were Sisi, Wouldn't she have stopped for a long moment to see her yellow raincoat and have tried to ask questions about the girl wearing it, or to even ask her to give it back to her? I don't really think so. I mean, if I saw my favorite coat being worn by someone else, I would have had several questions, but then again, I'm not Six, and Six never bothered to do that. She just simply ran away, probably because she never owned a yellow raincoat in the first place. Now, there could be many reasons to believe that Six used to own the yellow raincoat, such as she may have lost it somehow, or she took it off and the girl just found it. But from what we were shown and all the evidence to support my claim, it is clear that Six is not Sisi. Now, as for the girl in the yellow raincoat, it's somewhat clear that she could be Sisi, but with the raincoat being stored away in the wooden chest, we could take a different turn. We barely got to know the girl in the yellow raincoat at all, considering in the end of Very Little Nightmares, she dies with a pretender with nothing left but the raincoat. Now, it could be obvious that this could be just a girl who found the raincoat like Six did in the Pale City, and most likely that it must have been passed down by multiple children who found it until Six took it as her own. However, I want to do a more deep dive into this. If we think of the color yellow, we think of it as a positive color that's associated with happiness, hope, creativity, and more. But if we take a negative approach, yellow can mean cautious, betrayal, and egotism. Could it be that the yellow raincoat serves as a danger to children without them even knowing? I know, I could be stretching a bit too far, but if you take into account that many children may have used to wear the yellow raincoat and something bad must have happened to them, it could be possible that the raincoat serves as some sort of bad luck charm, whereas you put it on, you might end up having an unfortunate fate. Again, I could be stretching too far, but just think of it a bit. However, with Six, I feel like that could be a different story, because Six has undergone a massive change after Mono rescued her from the signal tower's control. Like what the color yellow symbolizes in a negative approach, Six betrays Mono, leaving him in the signal tower, and now she is out for herself. And she is shown to be more aggressive and callous, posing a danger to anyone who crosses her way. These aspects of Six match the color yellow suitably, which also aligns with the yellow raincoat. So symbolically speaking, Six is the chosen one for the raincoat because they both suit each other very well, and it probably didn't suit Sisi because she might have not been so cold or callous or dangerous as Six is. I know this is a weird theory, but just take a grain of salt out of this and think about it. Sure, it doesn't seem realistic, but in this world, nothing seems to make so much sense, just like with the yellow raincoat. So enough about the raincoat, I want to talk about Sisi's disappearance and why she might have decided to abandon Otto. At first, I thought that Sisi was also being influenced by the Nowhere's darkness just like with Noon, which could very well be the case, but if she were to be a caring sister, she wouldn't have abandoned Otto, would she? But yet she did. Well, in my opinion anyways. Since Otto thought that Sisi left him. Now, just to clarify, no, we do not know Otto or Sisi's backstory except for the fact that the ferryman took her away. It could be possible that Sisi was also feeling miserable in her life in the waking world, since the ferryman seems to only target children who are struggling gravely in their lives. But what could Sisi be struggling with? Well, it could be several things: mental health, poor lifestyle, family issues, bullying, it could be endless. But I have one possibility, however this is out of pure speculation, so don't take this super seriously. I think the reason Sisi left Otto is because she envied him. Okay, hear me out on this. If you think of how Otto is, he is quite cunning with technology, specifically his dream apparatus, along with psychology and possibly other things that would impress people. And thinking of it, we know more about Otto and nothing about Sisi, and I think that would be her point of view, that people value Otto more because he is smart, talented, and I guess quote-unquote a good guy, while Sisi might have been overshadowed and felt left out. And I think that's where her envy might have come from. I wouldn't say invisible because Otto acknowledges Sisi and cares for her, but it's more like no one else cares to acknowledge her skills or simply push her aside, as if she doesn't really matter to anyone else. And I think that's why Sisi left for the Nowhere, because she must have felt that no one, well except for Otto, would bother trying to search for her. Maybe her family did try, but eventually gave up. And as disheartening as this is, it is the reality that many people feel. And with the ferryman promising Sisi a better life in another world, the young girl might have not hesitated to take the chance to leave her old life behind to start anew. Yes, I know this part of my theory is quite similar to some people's life stories you'd hear on the internet, but it's not so far-fetched as you think. It's very real and happens almost, if not exactly, every single day. We just can't see that because we grow up differently, just like how no one might have seen Sisi in that way. Again, this may as well be a massive stretch, but again, it's not too far-fetched. Now let's get to the theory of 6 being noon out of the way, and quite frankly, I find this to be a bit too bullshit crazy to believe. Now, I'm not trying to jump into any assumptions, I'm only saying this because it doesn't really make any sense to me whatsoever. In chapter 3 of The Sounds of Nightmares, Noon walks into a shopping mall and goes inside a toy store called Jujubee's Toys. And if you listen closely, she hums Six's music motif, which some of us either call Six's theme or Togetherness.
I grabbed one and began playing on the carpet. But it didn't take long for me to grow bored.
This might be where the theory comes from, and I can see how this could imply that Noon could be 6, but it still doesn't convince me enough. One feature about the Nowhere is that music exists in the world. It's literally a reflection of our society, just more twisted and bendy. We can obviously see that with the TV song from the Ma that many of us call the Veronica song. And you can find it being sung, well, not too accurately, by the bullies in Little Nightmares 2. The song Prison Toys, composed by Tobias Lilja, who I'm a big fan of his soundtracks, can also be heard from a music box in the Ma. And when we hear the soundtrack Togetherness, which I'm just gonna call it that, it's more easier, we immediately think of 6, because this is 6's signature theme song. Wow, that's a lot of S's. Mono also has a theme song, that of course being End of the Hall, and you can hear it at parts throughout Little Nightmares 2 and by the end of the game, since Tobias does use some motifs from his previous tracks to incorporate them into other ones. But you can't hear it coming from someone else or some sort of object like a music box, only that it's programmed into the game. Where I'm going with this is that 6's theme literally exists in the Nowhere, and possibly in the waking world. You can hear it from the music box, and it seems to be very popular and listened to by many people since Noon knows the song, and so does 6, and she seems to love it, so much so that she hums the song whenever she gets the chance to. So if Togetherness exists in the Nowhere, and possibly in the waking world, and given its popularity, then it's most likely that Noon listens and remembers the song by memory, and a big coincidence that 6 also knows it. Just like how the bullies sing the Veronica song by memory. Since there are no TVs around in the schoolhouse, so the bullies must be able to remember the song. Mono's theme also exists as well. It was created by the composer, sure, but it doesn't physically exist in the Nowhere. No music box or any children humming it proves it. If either one of those actually did play the theme or motif of End of the Hall, then it's most likely that it does exist, literally. So it would be a great assumption that Mono's theme doesn't exist in either worlds. What I'm trying to say here is that just because we hear 6's theme or Togetherness at some certain places, doesn't always mean that 6 could be present, or that the track could be pointing towards her. Since it does seem to be, I guess you would say, the iconic Little Nightmares music, since it was used in the trailer of Little Nightmares 3. And you can also say that this could be accurate in real life as well. Because let's be honest here, we love music, I love listening to 6's theme every day, and I'm sure many of you do as well. 6's theme exists in the waking world just like how it does in the Nowhere, so we wouldn't call it 6's theme all that much, even though it is solely meant for her. It would most likely be a song that was made by a composer, and that she just loves it very much. Another piece of evidence to prove that Noon is not 6 is how their characters behave. Listen to Noon. She sounds a bit more open and enthusiastic at times despite her sad and monotone behavior. She meets a boy named Jester and doesn't feel at all shy or worried when she is confronted by him. She also meets another kid in the first chapter and a boy named Rusty in chapter 4 who was with his group of friends in the carnival. Noon seems like an outgoing person who might not be so afraid to interact with others and could even trust some children. That's what separates her from Six. Six is not that type of girl to be acquainted with anyone else. She doesn't trust anyone. She is only out for herself, even before the events of the second game and the first. She is more like an introvert, however she was able to learn to trust Mono for sure, until she felt betrayed by him for not helping her when the Thin Man took her away, and because he broke her music box in the signal tower, the one thing that gave her comfort. Noon is also more of a talkative person, and not because of the podcast, but because she has that confidence to speak out, especially to give a little humor when she could. Six doesn't feel that kind of person. She rarely speaks unless if she has to grab someone's attention. She's not at all humorous, and she doesn't always seem to be happy most of the time. She seems either sad or serious, probably because of all the harsh experiences she had gone through, and all she wants to do is focus on her survival, even forgetting about her music box that appeared in the maw. Speaking of that, Noon never mentioned about having a music box with her or even the song Togetherness, and if she was Six, then she would have wanted to keep her music box with her most of the time, or even bring it up when talking to Otto. It really doesn't make sense to me how these two could be one in the same, and their names are also relevant to this. Six's name might not even be her real name, but rather a name that she preferred to go by since some children use nicknames as a way to be truthful to who they are, and possibly because they just like being called different names. Noon's real name is Ruth, and she goes by Noon because the bullies call her No One. I really don't think Noon would change her name to Six, and even if she did, why Six? Does it have a meaning? Does it represent her in any way? Sure, Six's name must mean something which I don't 100% really know. It is possible that Six is named that way because of the 6 out of the 7 deadly sins, gluttony, and I don't think I need to explain why. But it really doesn't add up, and I'm saying this with dry evidence here, so it's up for your headcanon on what you want to think. But another detail that could also debunk this theory, and I know I shouldn't base this off of appearance, but if you look at Six's character model, you can see that her face somewhat looks like a Japanese or Korean girl, based on how it's structured. This could be relevant since both the Maw and the Pale City have a sort of Japanese feel. The Maw is especially inspired by Studio Ghibli, who are also a Japanese film studio. And listen to how Noon speaks. She speaks in a British accent, which could imply that she lives in the UK or England. Six doesn't look like she could be from the UK, nor speak in that accent. And she could be from somewhere else like in Japan or China or somewhere else. Whilst it could be possible that she would have been raised in the UK and learned how to speak in that way, it still doesn't align well between her and Noon. Six also speaks the two words hey and oi, part of the call sign, and if you translate those to either Japanese or Chinese, they both pronounce the same way. Either that, or I could just be digging way too far in the rabbit hole, and that Six can actually speak proper English, but still not clear. So in summary, Six and Noon are not the same, and with all the evidence I found, with both of their characters being different, and how Six enjoys her music box that Noon never mentioned, it clearly debunks the theory between them. Noon is not Six, Six is not Sisi. I don't think Six needs to be anyone else or be related to anyone, and if you think of it, if Six were Sisi or Noon, then we'd be following her again, and that's what Supermassive Games are not intending, and supposedly Tarsier Studios if Embracer Group never bought them. I doubt Six's journey is far from over, but I don't think we need to follow her any longer, because there are more stories about other children in the nowhere we have yet to explore. So therefore, it's more poignant that we're straying away from Six. I wouldn't say forgetting her, but moving on to someone else. In fact, It's Just Joy talks about this a bit on his channel, which I highly recommend you go watch. But by the end of the day, we don't know who Sisi is thoroughly, at least for now anyway, and it's most likely we're going to find out eventually. So that is my theory on who Sisi could be, and this video doesn't give a straight answer to that question, but it at least gives kind of an idea on what we could expect. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out my Instagram and X page. The link will be down in the description down below. And if you're a fan of Little Nightmares, you can also check out my fanfiction series, My Little Nightmares Stories of the Little Ones. I promise you, you will enjoy it. There will be links provided down below, and it involves reading, so get used to it. But in the meantime, I'll see you little ones next time. Bye bye.